In 1930, New York City stood at a crossroads between glitter and hunger. Steel towers pierced the sky while breadlines lengthened on cold sidewalks. Bankers still wore silk hats, but clerks counted coins twice before spending a nickel. It was a year when ambition had not yet surrendered, when jazz still slipped through speakeasy doors. And when the city believed, perhaps stubbornly, that tomorrow would repair what yesterday had broken. In 1930, New York City was not yet the wounded metropolis it would soon become, but neither was it the roaring colossus it had been only a year earlier. The crash of 1929 had unsettled the foundations of finance, yet daily life continued with an uneasy composure. The skyline rose confidently above the rivers, its new towers symbolizing faith in permanence, while below them men in threadbare coats searched for work that was no longer there. Lower Manhattan still revolved around New York Stock Exchange, where the marble facade projected stability even as markets staggered. Traders gathered beneath its columns each morning, their voices disciplined but strained. The panic of October had subsided, replaced by a cautious rhythm of buying and selling. Clerks moved briskly through corridors with slips of paper. Telephones rang, chalk marks flickered across blackboards. There was an insistence, almost ritualistic, that the machinery of finance must continue. Outside, unemployed men lingered near curbside conversations, listening for rumor, hoping for opportunity. Broadway retained its electric glow. Theater marquees illuminated the night with promises of comedy and song, and audiences still filled velvet seats. Reviews offered distraction, dramas offered reflection. Even in uncertain times, New Yorkers paid for stories that reassured them that life possessed shape and meaning. Actors bowed beneath applause that sounded slightly more fervent than before, as though gratitude itself had intensified. The city had not stopped entertaining itself, it simply did so with sharper awareness. Construction cranes defined the horizon. The skeleton of the Empire State Building climbed steadily upward, its steel frame exposed against the sky like a declaration of resolve. Workers balanced on beams high above Fifth Avenue, their lunch pails dangling, their movements deliberate and methodical. The building promised to be the tallest in the world, and that promise carried symbolic weight. In the midst of economic contraction, the city chose to reach higher. Investors spoke of long-term vision, laborers spoke of weekly wages. Both found reason to continue. Just blocks away, smaller projects stalled. Brick facades stood half-finished, scaffolding idle. Contractors renegotiated terms, suppliers tightened credit. The difference between monumental ambition and ordinary enterprise grew stark. Grand ventures secured backing from powerful interests, while modest undertakings faltered. The skyline thus recorded inequality in steel and stone. On the streets, traffic pulsed with mechanical insistence. Automobiles honked, streetcars clanged, delivery trucks rattled across cobblestones. Pedestrians navigated intersections with practiced vigilance. Newsboys called headlines about unemployment figures and foreign affairs. Women in tailored coats stepped from department stores carrying parcels wrapped in crisp paper. The tempo of the city did not slow, it recalibrated. Immigrant neighborhoods remained densely woven communities. In the Lower East Side, Yiddish signs hung above bakeries and tailoring shops. Italian grocers arranged produce in neat pyramids. Families lived in tenements where windows opened onto narrow air shafts, yet interiors were kept scrupulously clean. Radios gathered neighbors in shared listening, newspapers circulated from hand to hand. Economic anxiety tightened budgets but did not erase habit. Meals were prepared with careful thrift, children attended school, religious observances continued with dignity. Harlem vibrated with artistic momentum. The afterglow of the Harlem Renaissance lingered in clubs and salons. Musicians tuned brass instruments in dim rooms, and poets debated language over cups of coffee. Jazz drifted from venues where patrons, black and white, mingled in defiance of customary boundaries. Yet even here, employment uncertainties intruded. Performers negotiated shorter contracts, proprietors calculated risks nightly. Creativity persisted, though profit wavered. The waterfront bore testimony to global interdependence. Piers along the Hudson and East Rivers received cargo from Europe and beyond. Longshoremen hauled crates of textiles, machinery, and produce. Ships departed bearing American goods into a contracting world market. Conversations among dockworkers included references to tariffs and declining orders. The harbor, once a symbol of relentless expansion, sensed the friction of international strain. In Midtown, department stores curated displays that balanced aspiration with caution. Windows showcased gowns and appliances under carefully arranged lighting. Sales staff adjusted their tone to suit a more hesitant clientele. Credit purchases required scrutiny. Layaway plans grew more common. The ritual of consumption endured, yet it was moderated by awareness that income might falter. Public transportation remained the city's circulatory system. Subway cars roared beneath avenues, their steel wheels screeching against rails. Riders held newspapers folded to financial pages. Conductors announced stops with habitual authority. Elevated trains rattled above outer borough streets, casting shifting shadows. The system's reliability provided reassurance. Movement implied continuity. City government confronted mounting demands. Relief agencies recorded rising applications for assistance. Charitable organizations expanded soup kitchens. Officials debated budgets with increasing urgency, aware that tax revenues were shrinking. Yet there was reluctance to admit the severity of the downturn. Optimism lingered in speeches, caution guided policy. Education proceeded with disciplined normalcy. Schoolrooms filled each morning with children reciting lessons. Teachers emphasized order and diligence, virtues thought to anchor uncertain futures. Universities continued lectures in law, medicine, and engineering. Students discussed employment prospects with subdued candor. Diplomas no longer guaranteed placement, but they retained symbolic value. Religious institutions offered both spiritual counsel and material aid. Churches and synagogues organized food drives. Sermons addressed perseverance. Congregations gathered beneath stained glass, listening to appeals for patience and charity. Faith functioned as both solace and structure, reinforcing communal bonds. Nightlife retained its allure. Despite prohibition, discreet doors admitted patrons to hidden bars. Inside, glasses clinked softly. Orchestras played restrained melodies. The tension between legality and desire added an undercurrent of risk. Law enforcement occasionally raided establishments, yet enforcement was inconsistent. The city navigated its own contradictions with practiced ambiguity. Residential life varied dramatically by district. In affluent neighborhoods along Park Avenue, apartments featured polished floors and attentive staff. Dinner parties discussed market fluctuations with analytic detachment. Meanwhile, in working-class quarters, families counted coins carefully before purchasing coal. Heat and rent required prioritization. The distance between these realities measured more than geography. The press chronicled every development. Editorial pages debated causes and remedies. Cartoonists sketched financiers with exaggerated expressions. Journalists interviewed factory owners and unemployed laborers alike. Newspapers shaped perception, oscillating between reassurance and alarm. Readers absorbed each edition with concentrated interest. The police force maintained visible presence. Officers directed traffic, patrolled neighborhoods, and responded to disputes. Crime statistics were scrutinized for signs of escalation. Economic hardship often correlates with petty theft. Authorities remained vigilant. Yet civic order largely held, sustained by collective adherence to routine. Cultural institutions preserved continuity. Museums curated exhibitions. Libraries extended hours to accommodate job seekers scanning classified advertisements. Intellectual life did not recede, it adapted. Lectures on economics drew sizable audiences eager to interpret unfolding events. Winter sharpened hardship. Cold winds swept through avenues, intensifying discomfort for those without stable housing. Breadlines lengthened outside relief centers. Men stood patiently, hats in hand, awaiting modest portions. Their presence became a defining image of the year, disciplined endurance rather than open despair. Industry in outer boroughs experienced contraction. Factories reduced shifts, some closed entirely. Foremen delivered notices with formal restraint. Workers departed carrying tools and uncertainty. Neighborhood economies absorbed the shock unevenly. Some enterprises diversified, others disappeared. Yet ambition persisted. Real estate promoters continued to advertise new developments, invoking modern convenience and architectural innovation. The conviction that the city's growth was inevitable remained embedded in rhetoric. Skepticism coexisted with hope. As spring approached, parks filled with cautious leisure. Families strolled along pathways, children sailed toy boats in ponds. Green spaces provided temporary reprieve from financial preoccupation. Conversation shifted briefly from markets to weather. By mid-year, it was evident that recovery would not be immediate. Bank failures elsewhere in the nation rippled through confidence. Depositors scrutinized statements. Some withdrew savings preemptively. Financial prudence replaced speculative enthusiasm. Still, New York in 1930 did not collapse into chaos. Its infrastructure functioned, its institutions endured, its people adapted incrementally. The city's identity, forged through immigration, industry, and ambition, proved resilient. Yet beneath the visible surface, pressure accumulated, setting the stage for deeper transformation in the years to follow. As 1930 progressed, the texture of daily existence in New York City grew more austere. The initial shock of the market collapse gave way to measurable decline. Businesses that had hoped for swift recovery confronted shrinking orders and tightening credit. The language of temporary setback began to sound unconvincing. Banks adopted stricter lending standards. Prospective borrowers encountered new scrutiny. Collateral was examined with forensic precision. Small entrepreneurs found expansion plans postponed indefinitely. The financial sector, once exuberant, adopted a posture of guarded preservation. Municipal relief systems strained under increasing demand. Private charities coordinated with city agencies to distribute food and clothing. Lines formed with quiet regularity, individuals maintaining composure despite evident fatigue. The phenomenon of public assistance, once peripheral, became central to urban management. Housing insecurity intensified. Landlords negotiated delayed payments. Evictions rose gradually. Families doubled up in cramped apartments to reduce expenses. Privacy diminished. Solidarity increased. Social networks functioned as informal insurance. Cultural production reflected shifting moods. Playwrights introduced themes of uncertainty. Novelists depicted characters confronting diminished prospects. Film theaters screened features that alternated between escapism and realism. Audiences sought both diversion and acknowledgement. In financial districts, conversations turned analytical. Economists debated structural weaknesses. Policymakers considered interventionist measures previously deemed unnecessary. The idea that markets might require sustained oversight gained traction. Yet implementation lagged behind theory. Labor relations acquired sharper edges. Unions organized meetings to address layoffs and wage reductions. Employers balanced payroll against solvency. Strikes remained limited, but tensions were palpable. The equilibrium between capital and labor appeared less stable than before. Transportation systems, though still operational, recorded subtle declines in ridership during certain hours, reflecting reduced employment. Fare revenues became a matter of administrative concern. Infrastructure maintenance continued, though budgets tightened. Retail districts adapted by emphasizing value. Discount counters expanded. Promotional campaigns highlighted affordability. Consumer psychology shifted from indulgence to prudence. The symbolism of luxury grew muted. Public discourse increasingly acknowledged national dimensions of the crisis. Reports from industrial centers across the country indicated parallel distress. New York, as financial hub, felt both responsibility and vulnerability. Its fate intertwined with that of the broader republic. Summer heat intensified urban discomfort. Tenement dwellers sought relief on rooftops and stoops during evenings. Conversation lingered over prospects for autumn improvement. Optimism persisted in diluted form. The nearly completed silhouette of the Chrysler Building gleamed with Art Deco ornamentation, embodying both artistic ambition and economic paradox. Its polished spire caught sunlight brilliantly, even as offices within sought tenants. Architectural achievement contrasted with commercial uncertainty. Meanwhile, the harbor traffic thinned modestly. Export volumes declined in response to global contraction. Dockside employment fluctuated week to week. Maritime unions monitored schedules attentively. Educational institutions began to observe enrollment shifts as families reconsidered tuition expenses. Some students deferred studies, others pursued additional credentials, anticipating competitive labor markets. Classrooms became spaces of strategic calculation. In neighborhoods across boroughs, informal economies expanded. Barter arrangements supplemented cash transactions. Tailors accepted produce, grocers extended credit selectively. Trust networks acquired renewed importance. By late autumn, statistical indicators confirmed sustained downturn. Unemployment figures climbed, though precise measurement proved difficult. Newspapers published estimates that startled readers. The psychological transition from concern to apprehension solidified, yet civic rituals continued. Parades marked holidays. Municipal buildings displayed flags with unaltered ceremony. The persistence of tradition offered continuity amid fluctuation. As winter approached again, the city confronted the realization that the downturn constituted not an episode but an era. Coal deliveries were budgeted carefully, charitable drives intensified. Conversations in kitchens and boardrooms alike acknowledged endurance as a necessary virtue. New York City in 1930 thus occupied an intermediate state, no longer buoyed by unchecked expansion, not yet transformed by comprehensive reform. It was a metropolis recalibrating under pressure, testing the elasticity of its systems and the patience of its citizens. Steel towers stood as monuments to confidence conceived in earlier years, while breadlines traced the outlines of altered reality. Between those two images lay the true character of the city, industrious, restless, and determined to persist, even as the horizon darkened.